So I'll jump right in, but just a little bit of a summation. And I want to open this up and thank everyone for being here, but echo something that Wendy Dina said to me, which is that we're kind of in an arms race right now, and there is a lot of blame going around. I think everybody in the country knows that the healthcare system is broken. We've known that the healthcare system has been broken for decades, and if you followed along in politics, you've seen multiple attempts at some kind of reform back to the Clintons and Obama and ACA. But there's a lot of blame that goes around, and what I see is a bunch of financial titans fighting, and when elephants fight, the grass suffers. And one narrative that's out there is that this is just the evil insurance companies, or it's just the evil pharmaceutical companies, and they're certainly playing a role. Dr. Marion Mass is going to be speaking later on and can give you a lot of insight into all of the middlemen in the U.S. healthcare system, but it goes very, very deep. And one thing that is not getting as much press, to be honest, is the side of emergency medicine staffing groups. We as doctors often get the blame because our name is on the bill, even if the patient didn't see us. They might have seen a physician assistant or a nurse practitioner. They get home, they see a massive bill that has our name in it that we didn't even get to, we had no control over. So it's not just insurance companies, although that is the for-profit insurance companies, and the non-transparency is part of the problem. But really, it's this arms race between for-profit hospitals, non-profit and name-only hospitals, obfuscation with non-transparent insurance companies, and that is a ground that's fertile for abuse and has been abused. So on that note, I'm going to welcome Dr. Moreno and I believe Dr. Amish Shah, who is Arizona State representative and an emergency physician, if he is in here. Otherwise, we'll just have Dr. Moreno give us some opening remarks. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Lee. I'm honored to be here. I am the president of the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. A little bit of history about the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. ACEP, the American College of Emergency Physicians, gets all the props and all the credit for the heavy lifting that had to be done to make emergency medicine a specialty. A long time ago, in the 1970s, a group of physicians, predominantly surgeons and internists, realized that there was a special skill set, a special procedural skill set, a special communication skill set, and a special knowledge base that was required to effectively practice emergency medicine. And these individuals came together and they went before the American Board of Medical Specialties and convinced them that there should be an American Board of Emergency Medicine, that emergency medicine should be a specialty, that residency trained physicians should be practicing it, that we needed to develop a residency system, and we needed to develop an examination, a certifying examination that would qualify individuals to practice emergency medicine. ACEP led the charge, or the group that later became ACEP led the charge, and they were the ones who helped form our specialty. As time went on, the practice track for emergency medicine was closed, which is what happens with every single practice in the United States. It is started, obviously, by individuals who are practicing emergency medicine or whatever the other specialty was at the time, radiation oncology, interventional radiology, whatever it is, individuals who were practicing it, but obviously were not board certified because the certifying body didn't exist. So after a period of time, the practice track closes. The individuals who were practicing it but had not done a residency could apply to take the test. And then that time closes. And from then on, only board certified physicians are allowed to practice that specialty the American Board of Medical Specialists has recognized. At the time when the practice track closed, ACEP decided that they were going to continue to allow individuals who were practicing emergency medicine to call themselves emergency physicians and to be fellows of ACEP. So a group of individuals who were part of ASAP and part of that group that started our specialty said, wait a minute, we led a charge. We felt that emergency medicine had a specific procedural skill set, a specific communication skill set, and a specific knowledge base, and that now you need, the practice track is closed, now you need to be residency trained to call yourself an emergency physician. And these individuals became the American Academy of Emergency Medicine. And still today, the American Academy of Emergency Medicine upholds the definition of a specialist in emergency medicine as someone who is residency trained and board certified by the American Board of Emergency Physicians or the American Osteopathic Board of Emergency Physicians. And why? Because the founders of AAEM and every member of the board of AAEM and our membership today believes in equitable care, best care for every single patient. In fact, the mission statement of AAEM, number 1, says that every patient has the right to be treated by a specialist in emergency medicine when they have a healthcare emergency. And we define a specialist in emergency medicine as a physician who has been board certified by AAEM or AAEM. So we stand for equitable care for all patients. We stand for the best care for all patients. We believe that every patient, regardless of any human factor, regardless of ability to pay, insurance status, nation where you were born, nation where you live, race, color, ethnicity, gender identity, sexual preference, no matter what it is, every single patient on the planet who has a healthcare emergency deserves to be treated by a specialist in emergency medicine. And our vision is that this will be what happens on the planet going forward. Obviously, it may not happen in our lifetime, but we are still responsible. We are responsible to give the best care to every single human being. In order to give this care, we have got to make for ourselves, in partnership with our patients, an environment of workplace fairness where a physician can go to work every single day and walk into her job thinking about only one thing: how am I going to give the best possible care to every single patient who crosses my path today? That should be our only worry, doing the best thing for every human being who entrusts us with the care of their body and their life. We should not have to be worrying about whether a corporation is going to fire us because we ordered too many MRIs that month. We do not want to be worried about whether a corporation is going to do fraudulent billing and bankrupt our patients, as was said earlier, or do fraudulent billing and end up with us having our license in jeopardy. We do not need to be worried about being fired because we didn't admit enough insured patients. We need the protection of going to work every single day, only thinking about doing the very best thing for every patient who we take care of. In order to do that, AAEM is lobbying hard, but we are one small organization. As was pointed out, ASAP is a lot bigger than we are and don't share all of our values, which is the reason that AAEM separated from ASAP to begin with. We need all the emergency physicians listening here today and who hear this message afterward to help us take emergency medicine back. We need the individuals of this organization take EM back to help us take emergency medicine back. And we need the legislators in this country to listen and hear what patients need most is a physician who can focus only on medical care. And with that, I am going to turn the microphone over to one of my former residents, who is an emergency physician and a legislator, and who specifically entered the field of politics to do the right thing for patients and to create an environment that empowers physicians and supports physicians to do the right thing for patients. Amish Shah from Arizona.
Thank you. Thanks, Dr. Moreno. I appreciate all of you guys being here. I'm so glad that Mitch organized this entire summit, along with many of the others on this call. I recognize many of the names. Very proud to be here alongside my career mentor, Dr. Moreno, and I am glad to be part of the process. My name is Amish Shah. I'm an emergency physician. I'm also a member of the Arizona House of Representatives. I have I want to echo some of the thoughts that Dr. Moreno talked about. We're physicians are, in my opinion, very special people. Emergency physicians, especially, are very special people. We are we do a lot of good things. We're smart people. We're hardworking people. Most importantly, we're caring people. Many of us find it to be a point of pride that we are the safety net. We take care of anybody, as Dr. Moreno said, regardless of ability to pay, regardless of what their circumstances are. And that's great. And I think we do enjoy, luckily, high esteem in society. People are aware that we dedicate our lives to doing the right thing and simply helping people in need. So these are really wonderful things. We're also leaders of scientific thought. This, as I'm sure you guys know, over the last couple of years has been another important piece to sort of point out politically, I should say. But I think that sometimes in our desire to do all these things and do the right things, and we have a lot on our plates. We are a lot of us didn't go into this so that we could be politicians or administrators or have to spend a lot of our time worrying about these kinds of things. How does our world butt up against the business world and the political world? But unfortunately, it does. We are part of a broader and larger society, and the care we provide does fit within those contexts, within the economic structure of our country and within the political structure. And to that extent, I will tell you that we do need to be engaged and participate. It's not always the emergency physicians or the physician's favorite thing to do is to engage in this way. But that's unfortunately just reality. It is that we do have to get involved, and we do have to learn, we do have to understand, and look out for our profession, our own, more importantly, the next generation that comes up after us, so that they will continue to practice medicine according to the principles that have been handed down to us. And so I'm very fortunate that most of those, the highest principles of medicine were passed down to me by Dr. Moreno, in fact, herself, who's with me on this call. And I want to make sure that every student, every resident also gets that opportunity, and that's not lost, because it can be. It is possible that if the way in which we practice and political and business environment changes for the worse, then it does affect us. That's the reason I on today. So I'll give you a little bit of background from myself. I member of the House of Representatives for about 3 years. I was first elected in 2018. I'm running again for re-election for third term for next year. A lot of what I've focused on specifically is physician burns. We've talked about violence against physicians, and we've also talked about malpractice issues. Those are some of the big things. And we're very, in 3 years down there, we were successful with myself, the emergency physicians group, as well as which is the local ACEP chapter. We don't have an AAEM chapter, but with the local ACEP chapter and with the Arizona Medical Association, which is our medical society, we've been able to make some of these things happen. We've delivered actual results. Prior authorization reform doesn't affect us as ER docs, but it's huge for all the rest of medicine. And it's important to hear everybody out and make sure those things come forward. Non-retaliation, you've probably heard of my bill 2622, which Dr. Moreno and AAEM promoted, and there's been some press in the emergency medicine literature about this, preventing retaliation against the emergency physician. And that bill was sponsored by a specific story that happened to a good friend of mine at an emergency department where I used to work. So it is possible. The political process is very slow. It's difficult. It has its own rules. It's not what we're used to. We're used to a different environment in the ER, and I can see why it's not everybody's cup of tea to go down there. But again, that's just what you have to do. That's just what we have to do. That's what my main message is to the folks on this call. We have to learn about these things, about the way this world works, and be able to navigate it and navigate it successfully. The same thing kind of goes with the business world. I haven't really been an administrator at an emergency department or a chair, but really wasn't my idea either. This wasn't something I really wanted to do. But I know that that's where the kinds of decisions are made as far as how medicine is organized and then how we get our employment. I think we all know that the report that came out, the reports over the last few months that have come out talking about the oversupply have really made a pretty big splash in our community. I don't know of very many ER docs who aren't concerned about this. And of course, I talked to many of them. And it's important that we engage in this way to try to come up with a real solution to try to make sure that we don't have a problem coming up in the next few years. I can't tell you how important it is to be able to act collectively, to organize and to act in concert with one another and support those that are trying to lead this movement forward. And so that's why it means so much that you guys are here on this call. You're going to hear some of the solutions being put forward by Dr. Lee, Dr. Moreno, Dr. McNamara, and others talking about what are ways forward from this. For myself, we've looked into the idea of physicians banding together in some way to form perhaps some kind of trade organization or a practice group in order to be able to counter market power. What happened? I mean, we're talking about a case of economics here. We have, as you know from the reports, threats of an oversupply of about 10,000 emergency physicians coming up in a few years. So with the supply being where it is possible that if you're not very organized, then those that are organized, and we're talking about all the corporate interests, will certainly take that to their advantage. I mean, that's what they would do. That's how the business world really works. So there has to be a strategy going forward to try to perhaps from our side say, okay, well, we're going to have to be into act some in concert with each other to make sure that our goals are met. And I think that's kind of the basics of this. So I know those are very broad strokes, but that's the stage at which we are. And I'm very proud that the folks on this call are working on this with zest and gusto. So with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Moreno for further comments.
Thank you so much, Dr. Shah. So I think, Dr. Shah has shown what can be done when somebody who is conscious enters the field of politics, somebody who understands what's going on in the healthcare system and who helps to pass legislation that will protect physicians. The No Retaliation Act in Arizona, I think, was a landmark act, and I am hoping that it filters to the other states in the union. But again, this cannot be done unless we have partnership with the community. So you might ask yourself, do I have to become a politician like Dr. Shah did in order to make a difference? And the answer is no. We need people like Dr. Shah. We need people like Dr. Raul Ruiz, who's an emergency physician and has become a politician. And we have other physicians who have become politicians. And clearly, these individuals can lead the charge and are strategically placed to be able to make a difference. But the rest of us have a part to play as well. We need to continue to support what physician politicians are doing to better patient care. We need to get the word out there. We need to continue to educate our legislators. I was completely shocked, I have to tell you, when we had a nurse practitioner PA independent practice bills that came before the Louisiana legislature. I am currently living and working in New Orleans. And these HB 492 and 493 came before the Louisiana legislature for independent practice of NPs and PAs. And when I spoke to my legislators, I was shocked that they were going to vote on a bill and they had no clue what constituted the training of a nurse practitioner. And they had no clue what constituted the training of a physician. They did not know what the difference was. It is our responsibility to educate our legislators about the factors that impact the healthcare of their constituents. And as Dr. Dean said, telling stories really works. So when you tell a legislator that their father may be sitting in his Barker lounger watching the Super Bowl and eating potato chips and hot dogs and drinking beer and suddenly get chest pain, and he's not sure if it's his diet and mild obesity and the fact that he smokes, or whether he really is having a myocardial infarction, you want to take your father to somebody who has 12,000 hours of supervised clinical training that is regulated by the ACGME, not somebody who had 500 hours of online or self-arranged training that is regulated by nobody. We need to tell these stories and we need to point these things out to our legislators. And again, we need the partnership of the community. This is something that cannot be done by physicians alone. This is something that has to be done by our partners. As I said earlier, and I say all the time and will continue to say all the time, the relationship that is the core of healthcare is the relationship between the physician and her patient. And that is the core relationship. And that is the core relationship that has to go forward in order to ensure that we are going to get the regulatory and legislative changes we need to take medicine back, so that it will go back to being this relationship between the physician and her patient. And that is absolutely where it should be. But we need our patients to be educated. We need to educate them. We need the support of our patients. We need our patients lobbying our legislators. And we as physicians need to support our lawmakers such as Dr. Shah, Dr. Marshall, Dr. Ruiz, who are out there trying to do a job that is going to create workplace fairness for physicians and a safer environment for patients and a less expensive healthcare system, so that, as Dr. Smolensky said, currently the greatest cause of bankruptcy and financial failure in this nation is medical bills. This should not be. People should not be having to become homeless in order to protect their health. And there are stories. There are stories. Dr. Dean talks about the importance of stories. We had a patient come into our emergency department who was homeless This is a man who had a master's degree and who had to give up his job in order to care for his dying wife who had cancer. He had to use all of their savings and ultimately mortgage their house again in order to pay the medical bills that she had that were not covered by insurance. And then when the wife died, he had already quit his job to be her primary caregiver. His house was foreclosed on and he became homeless. That a man should lose his home because he loves his wife should not happen in this country or even any place in the world. And these are things that we need to partner with the community to ensure that physicians have the ability to have workplace fairness, to put the physician first, the patient first rather, and that physicians and patients should partner with each other to ensure that healthcare is just, that there are not private equity investors walking away with a $6 million profit when a man who loved his wife and wanted to take care of her has now become homeless. Do we have any questions, Dr. Lee or Dr. Mulligan?
Seeing if I can unmute, it looks like I can. We have some comments here and about 4 minutes left, so I can just highlight a couple of things here, actually. And thank you, Dr. Moreno and Dr. Shah. Really appreciate you being here. You know, I do want to highlight the comment from Will Overfelt talking about HCA buying a hospital in Asheville a few years ago, and this is a community where there's pretty much a monopoly with that system, and they contracted out with Team Health. There's an entire community there that is sort of banding together and feeling betrayed by the healthcare system, recognizing that the quality of care has gone down and getting absurd bills. And as we know, HCA and Team Health are two different entities. But this is something that's really bubbling to the surface within communities. And I think that's the opportunity that we have to really pair up with patients. And I think that's, you know, we've always wanted that, but so many physicians are afraid to speak out because they're afraid for their livelihoods. And that's something that we'll hear later on in the day in terms of whistleblowers that have suffered consequences. And every physician, this is part of the moral injury, is sort of feeling this. And when they bring up a patient care concern, or they see something like, I saw a horribly missed stroke from an outpatient urgent care associated with the hospital, but was retaliated against for bringing that up. It's a theme that we'll see, you know, on and on again, but so much of it is hidden because so many of us are afraid to speak out. So I thank you for your time and introductions, and Dr. Moreno and Dr. Shah will both be on panels at some point. Actually might be tomorrow for Dr. Shah. I wanted to just give a quick overview for the rest of the day. We got 2 minutes left here, so if Dr. Moreno or Dr. Shah had any closing thoughts, I'll send it over to you and then give an overview of the rest of the day and introduce Bradley Schwartz.